Did you always have an idea or a dream of living off-grid or coming out to a piece of land?
Yes, I did.
Is it true you have too much of it?
I do.
Sounds like a good problem to have. What's the first thing you would tell somebody if they wanted to learn how to live off-grid? What do you do about water out here in the desert? So is it true you've been going on the 10th year of living off-grid out here?
That's correct.
So you're as hot as you could ever want to be in the winter, and you get this place as cold as you could ever stand it in the summer.
Exactly. And it doesn't cost me a penny.
What are the best things you've learned, and what are the biggest mistakes you've learned from since you've been living out here off-grid? Out in the remote reaches of California's Mojave Desert, where the only green you're likely to find is that of creosote bushes or a stray Joshua tree, amongst the trash and abandoned patches of illegal cannabis grow sites left by Mexican and Chinese cartels, are scattered residences of those who choose to live off-grid and homestead their acreages of land. There are some good people out here, and there are some bad things that happen, like when some Mexican cannabis growers took it upon themselves to sell weed cheap on the street and pocket some of the money, which resulted in the cartel sending a hit squad to kill all 6 men. Here are 6 crosses memorializing the 6 men that died here. This took place only a mile and a half from the man you're about to meet. From my numerous travels to this desert, I've gathered that the mentality in the region is one of, what's mine is mine, and what's yours might be mine if you don't keep a good enough eye on it. Thievery is commonplace, and local law enforcement has limited interest in pursuing such crime. There are stories and legends of buried gold and treasure and money. The desert has many secrets. We're going to meet an off-grid homesteader named Bear, who is going to share how he took a 20-acre patch of earth and built his home here. Rockhopper here, and today I'm going to interview a guy named Bear who lives off-grid in the Mojave Desert, and he will narrate, and you will see his hands pointing out various things along the way throughout the property. He's got a lot of knowledge and information he's going to share with you today.
I love dogs. As you can see, I have a bunch around here. And in my previous life, I was a pointer.
So when did you first arrive at this property?
That would have been spring of 2016.
And you lived in the van first?
Yeah, I lived in this van. Was my first actual home. I would sleep in there with an air mattress, but I have a rack I made that I would hook on the back trailer hitch, and I modified the hitch so it wouldn't rock, and that became a porch. So I could sit out after sunset here in the nice warm desert and enjoy the night sky.
Okay, so you're just sitting out there on your little homemade porch, having a beer or whatever, looking at the stars.
Exactly.
Enjoying life.
And just enjoying life. Enjoying retirement.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's have a look inside this van.
All right. It's pretty messy right now. A lot of the stuff in here in buckets and that is all my prospecting tools. I do go out in the desert and do gold prospecting. But now I've added a refrigerator, and I'm starting to build cabinetry over the top of it. Then I have my metal detectors in the back there. And I always carry tools with me, so I'm never stuck about anything. And then here is my solar system. I've got 2 watt cycle batteries, 12 volt batteries in parallel, so I'm still at 12 volts in here. And I've got a 360 watt solar panel mounted on a roof rack, and that supplies all of the power I need here. And I stay at 100% power, even though I run a refrigerator and a fan and the inverter and all of the other stuff in here 24/7.
That sounds like a great setup.
I also added that light on the roof, or on the ceiling, and that is on this switch right here. That's 120 volts. So I can turn it on, and I have light in here if I'm sleeping in here. I will be putting a stove in over here, or a sink, refrigerator, and then a stove on this side. And I didn't want to put the stove on that side because that's where the gas tank filler is. Just in case any fumes seeped in, I didn't want to have any problems. So I'll put the stove on the opposite side of the gas tank.
So you're basically doing a total van build out.
A little bit at a time, yes I am. Because I was a general contractor, and this used to be full of tools. And I took all the tools out of here, put them in my garage, so that I could sleep in the van and go out and do prospecting.
So prospecting's like a passion for you, a hobby?
Oh yeah, well, I'm addicted to gold.
You got gold fever.
I sure do. This rack, minus the battery and the wood, is something I built a while back. I used to have an ATV, and I would mount this on the back of my van so I could carry my ATV on there without having to haul a trailer. I modified it and I put 3 connectors on it instead of just one in the center like most racks have. Those racks always kind of teeter-totter back and forth when you're driving. Adding 3 on here, it doesn't teeter-totter, it stays solid. So when this was on the back of my van and everything was emptied off of it, it actually became my summertime porch. So I put my lawn chair right here in the center, pop a cold beer, lean back, and watch the sky.
What are the best things you've learned, and what are the biggest mistakes you've learned from since you've been living out here off-grid?
Well, that's pretty easy. To start with, that up there is wind power. That was a big mistake. Winds blow all the time up here, but a fluctuating power, and I've had a lot more trouble with that than anything I've had in solar. So that was one of the mistakes. The other was collecting rainwater. That stuff gets heavy, and when the ground is wet, those legs want to sink into the ground, so the barrels would tip over on me in the get-go. So I had to strap them up against the wall to hold them from leaning out. Other than that is you can't have enough battery power and you can't have enough solar power. Like right now, I'm running air conditioning and ceiling fans inside because I have to. I have to because I'm producing more power than I need. And the inverter has a safety feature built in that will shut it down if it's taking in too much power. So I don't want that to happen and have all my food spoil in the refrigerator. So in order to keep everything running smoothly, I have to use the electricity. So in the summer, I run extra air conditioning and ceiling fans. In the winter, I run ceiling fans and electric heaters.
So you have too much power.
Way too much power. And that's a good thing.
Sounds like a great problem to have. If you want more power, you might want to consider the EBL high-capacity rechargeable lithium batteries. While many of today's devices have USB charging, you might have older gadgets and gizmos that don't, which is why the EBL batteries might come in handy for whatever you have. They're a higher capacity than alkaline batteries that are disposable and only get a one-time use. And that means you don't have a bunch of old alkaline batteries ending up in landfills. Whatever devices you might have might take AAA or AA batteries, such as this flashlight, which takes AAA batteries. The AAA batteries come in 1200 milliwatt hour, while the AA's come in 3000 milliwatt hour. And more power means less time having to recharge the batteries. And then just hook it into whatever power source you desire. When the batteries are charging, you'll see little red LED lights atop the batteries on the charger. I can connect it to my mini solar panel, or better yet, I can just charge it right into my EBL portable power pack. By getting the high capacity EBL rechargeable batteries, you'll not only be helping the planet by saving resources, you'll be helping out your finances by saving money. So when you first came to the property, you lived in the van, and then you moved into this RV. Tell me about that.
I've had this for a long time. I bought this back in the early 2000s for about $1,200, so I got a real good deal on it. And it runs well. I rebuilt the engine once on it, and I figured, well, I'm going up there, I'm going to bring this up there, and when I'm done living in it, I can turn it into a guest house. Well, I was done living in it after I built my cabin, and that took me probably about 4 to 6 months to build the first part of my cabin that I lived in, which was a 10 by 12 cabin. It was basically a kitchen, and a bedroom, and a living room all in one. And I had my batteries and my solar originally in the kitchen with me. That was back in the lead acid days, which was a no-no. I did it, and I survived, and now I use LifePo 4 batteries, so I don't have anything with off-gassing or problems like that. This was home for quite a few months while I was out here, and I have solar on top of this also, and I was running solar inside of here so I can have lights at night and watch my videos on my cell phone and things like that.
So you have Wi-Fi out here, no problem?
Well, originally I would have intermittent Wi-Fi, It was fine all day long, but at night it would fade off. The cell phone company told me that's because people are working all day, and then when they come home, they're using up all the bandwidth. So the bandwidth doesn't stretch out as far. That was the explanation they gave me. So I said, what are you going to do about it? And they gave me the thing on top of that post right up there, which is a weed boost system that boosts the cell phone signal. So that gives me about 150 feet around my cabin of boosted cell signal. So I get 5 bars now without a problem. I built this whole thing by myself, a little at a time. I figured out different ways of raising the panels into place. But the skeleton of this is all metal stud, all iron stud skeleton. And the reason I did that was for termites. I didn't want termites getting into my framing of my cabin. And these panels are designed so they reject termites. Termites don't go into those types of T111 panels. These are not wood. They're made of a fiber type board. Highly insulated. It's a great cabin. It's quiet in there. When I'm inside of there, I hear a noise outside, and there's 10 dogs barking out here, and I have to open a door or a window to make sure that's what the noise is.
And you built this entire cabin all on your own?
All on my own. And I had a few setbacks here and there where the wind blew me off a ladder a couple of times, but no big deal. I've been in construction all my life, so when I look at something like that, I want to build this, and I don't have anybody else to help me. I just figure out a way or a method to do it by myself.
Did you always have an idea or a dream of living off grid or coming out to a piece of land?
Yes, I did. I originally, as a kid, as a youngster, I liked going into the woods and building forts and cabins, not with stuff that you buy from the store, but what you would find in the woods. And I built some pretty neat forts down there, 2-story forts and all of that. And the other kids would come and throw dirt bombs at us to try to get into my fort, and they never could.
So this is the main house, the place you now call home, is that correct?
That's correct. This is my cabin.
All right, well, let's go on in and have a look.
All right. Follow me.
Will do.
It's nice in here with the air conditioning on.
It is. It's nice and cool in here. And it's nice that you never ever run those air conditioners out because you have so much power. They just go on all day, every day.
Exactly.
And in the desert, it can reach over 110 here. So it's a good thing to have. You absolutely need it, really, don't you?
Yeah, well, out here you definitely need to have some type of cooling, because when it gets up in the 100+ degree temperatures, you need to cool down. That's too hot for your body. This is my app right now for showing my power in the cabin with the air conditioning and the ceiling fans and all the regular stuff like refrigerators and clocks and that stuff all running. I'm at 93% left. That's how much more capacity I have, and the time remaining on the batteries is infinite. So I could keep on going forever. This 463 watts right here, 465 watts, doesn't have a minus sign, so that's how much power I'm still bringing in to my batteries, even with all of this stuff running.
So you have almost everything you could possibly run in here, and you still have 93% of max power.
Exactly. And I still have almost 500 watts of power coming in.
That's great. Endless, pretty much almost endless power.
Pretty much. It says infinite, so until the sun sets, it'll be at infinite, and I'll never use any battery power. So going to bed at night, I start off with 100% power. I can sleep all night with air conditioning running, and when I get up in the morning, I'm only down to 80%.
Now, how does that change? For instance, that's spring, summer, and fall. You got tons and tons of power. How does that change in the winter?
In the winter, I still have plenty of power, but the days are shorter. What I do is I run electric heaters. Now, that little unit right down there on the ground is an electric heater, and it's on with a thermostat setting. So if the temperature in the cabin drops below 65, that will turn on and keep me up to 68, 70 degrees.
Okay. Even with the short days of the winter, you still get adequate power.
I have more than adequate. I have too much power.
Even in the winter.
Even in the winter. Now, this area you're in is the original cabin. just this little section, this one room. And this door right here was the main door coming into the cabin. I left it on there so in the winter there's no need me heating extra rooms that I don't have to. And the same thing with the window. So I can close the window and close the door, and I only heat the area that I'm living in, so I don't have to worry about heating the extra stuff.
Okay, so this little space right here that I'm pointing out right now, this was the original small cabin.
Right, there was no door opening here. This was a solid wall going across.
Can you show me the rest of the house?
Sure. Well, the next thing I actually added on was the bathroom and bedroom down this hallway.
Okay.
So this is the bedroom. There's my computer set up right there. I have to keep everything covered because of the dust that's in this desert. It's a fine dust that gets through everything. This is basically just where I sleep at night.
Okay, nice little bedroom here. You got a ceiling fan that keeps you cool.
Ceiling fan above there. And I positioned this room so that that window and the window behind me right here are across from each other. So in the summertime when the winds blow at night, I open that window, and I get a nice cross breeze right across the bed. And I breathe nice, cool, fresh desert air at nighttime.
How much does it cool down at night, roughly, would you say?
Around 30 degrees, roughly. It varies between 30 and 40 degrees different parts of the year. But if it's 70 at night, it's going to be 100 the next day, guaranteed. This is the main cabin heater right here. Now I did pipe gas into the bedroom to add a second one of these if needed, but I really don't need it. I set this on number 2 on the dial. It has a thermostat belt built into it, and it's got electronic ignition, so it's basically you turn it to pilot, press down, click it on, and then set it to number 2. And that will keep the cabin at around 71 degrees all night long, even if it's only 20 degrees outside. And when I built this, I over-insulated everything. The walls are fully insulated. Every air gap is cleaned. When I put electrical outlets in the wall, around the boxes, the electrical boxes, after they were wired, I filled those with foam insulation, expanding foam, so the air doesn't even come back through those. Now I did notice that that one has a little bit of air that comes through it. That's why there's a piece of tape over it that blocks that cold winter air, because the winds come from that direction out the window, and I could feel cold air when I was at the sink. I just put a little piece of tape over that, and one of these days I'll pull everything out, stick a can of foam in there, and foam the area around the electrical box so I don't have that problem anymore.
You're totally off-grid, and yet you have more power than you could ever use. Even with everything running, you just can't use it all up. You can't even get it down to like 10%, right?
Exactly. I never get down that low. The lowest I've seen it is running everything in the wintertime, including the small space heater and a large 900 watt to 1800 watt electric radiator, oil-filled radiator. I got down to 61% on my battery pack.
So you're as hot as you could ever want to be in the winter, and you get this place as cold as you could ever stand it in the summer.
Exactly, and it doesn't cost me a penny. I don't get a bill in the mail any month at all through the whole year, and I'm going on 10 years out here. I don't even know what an electric bill looks like.
There's got to be a certain freedom to that.
There is. There's a great freedom to that. Not having to rely on anybody else. Now, when they have the high winds and the electric companies in California shut everybody's electricity off to prevent fires, I'm not worried about it. My power stays on, and I could sit here and do anything I want to do with all of the power I've got extra. And if I feel like going to sleep with the heater on or going to sleep with the air conditioner on, I don't worry about running out of power.
That sounds like a very comfortable feeling.
It is. And when you're retired, every comfortable feeling is excellent.
They gave you this freezer to do a review, and in exchange you get to keep this freezer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I have a freezer, an extra freezer, and this is not a refrigerator. This is just a freezer. This is everything below zero. So you can see I keep my extra food and extra bottles of water in there, because one thing you should know about freezers is if you have a lot of empty space in there, the compressor runs a lot more often. So if you fill in that space with something that freezes, then it doesn't have to run as often. So that saves power also in the long run.
And the reason they gave this to you is because you have your own YouTube channel, correct?
That is correct, and I have met the requirements to be monetized on YouTube. Companies have seen how fast my viewership is growing and said, we want to advertise on this guy's channel. So in order to advertise, they send me a product, I do a review on it, I test it out, and I do my reviews. I don't do a lot of technical mumbo jumbo that nobody understands. I do it so that the average layman or laywoman can listen to it and understand what I'm talking about. So when I test batteries, like the battery I have down here on the ground, which is a LifePro 4 battery, and when I do a test on that and I hook it up to an inverter, I'll plug the air conditioner into it, and I have my laptop sitting on the counter right here, and I'll set a timer on there so that you can actually see how long will that air conditioner run on that one little battery.
What is the name of your YouTube channel?
It's G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways. I think they'll enjoy it. I have a lot of playlists and tens of thousands of videos. This is the bathroom right here. I put a bathtub instead of just a shower, so I could sit in a tub if I had to. And of course I have the shower up on the wall with a shut-off switch on the top where I could adjust the water coming out of the head and cut it back a little bit to save on water. Then I have a toilet here and a sink here, and of course the medicine cabinet. This is 12-volt lighting in here. Originally I went with 12-volt lighting through the cabin thinking I was going to be saving money. I'm glad I wired it with the adequate wire for 120-volt wiring, because I'll be switching it over, because you don't really save anything on 12-volt lighting. I have this little bucket unit here, which is a composting toilet, and that is used for when there's inclement weather outside. And right beside it is the white powder in that little holder, and the bucket below it. The bucket has wood shavings. White powder is lime powder, and it's called hydrated lime. It's used in construction for mixing with concrete. That keeps odors down, and the wood shavings absorb any moisture that's in there so that things dry out faster.
What do we have going on here?
Alright, so we talk about I'm getting too much energy input. This is the charge controller. It's controlling the power that's coming off the big solar panel. Right now I'm bringing in 1,240 watts of energy in through this little unit. I've got 89 amps of power coming in at 63 volts. That's a lot of power coming in, and I've got way too much coming in. And it's feeding this inverter, which converts 12-volt electricity from the batteries into 120-volt electricity in the cabin. Well, this thing has a safety feature built into it, so if it becomes overwhelmed, it will actually shut down. Electronics will just shut down on it, so there's no power going through, so it won't catch fire and burn up. But when that happens, it actually shuts all the power off inside, and that's just like a power outage from Edison, where you have no electricity. So your refrigerators and your freezers could all thaw out until you come back and reset them. And what I have to do is reset this unit right here with this switch. I just shut that switch off. Right here, shut that switch off, and then this thing will go blank. Then when it comes back on, it takes a few seconds to get started up, and I have to reset the time and date on it, and then press the start button right there, and everything comes back on again. But if I'm still bringing in too much electricity, it'll only run for a few minutes. So I've got to have some way of burning that off. What I'm going to do to repair that, my friend Tony, his channel is doing redneck things off grid, sent me these switches, which are basically the same as that switch, but they're a little neater looking. Okay, so you have the green and the red, which red is off, green is on. So I'll be setting this up on the solar panels that are bringing in too much electricity, so I can disconnect half the solar panels if I'm going to be away for a couple of days, I'll shut off half the solar panels because I'm not going to be using any electricity. I won't be running air conditioning. I won't be running ceiling fans. I won't leave anything running in the cabin except the refrigerator and freezer. So I only need a fraction of the solar panels coming in. So I've got a couple of these switches here that will shut off certain amounts of solar so I can control the input if I'm not going to be here. You can see on these batteries it says 230 amp hours, and I have them hooked in parallel, which means all the negatives tied together and all the positives tied together. So when you do that, you keep the same voltage. These are 12.8 volts each. So you keep the same 12.8 volts, but you add the amp hours together. So I add 230, 230, 230, and 230, which is 920. So 920 amp hours means I can run 920 amps for 1 hour. You're not ever going to use that many amps. Most houses run on 100 amps. I have 920 amps that I could run for 1 hour. So if you multiply 12.8 times 920, that tells you how many watts you can run for an hour. Now everything that you use is rated by watts, which equals volts times amps equals watts. That's Ohm's law. It never fails. It's always correct. So watts divided by amps equals volts. So you can reverse that sequence around to get different readings. All right, so this is 920, and then I've got another 200 amps down there added into this system in parallel. That's why these separate wires connect here with the same wires that come off this set. So those 5 batteries are what runs my whole cabin. A total of 5 batteries at 12.8 volts. Originally, when I started here, I used lead acid batteries, and I had all 3 of these shelves loaded with batteries, and I had the floor down here loaded with batteries, and you see all the black on the ground. That's all from spilled lead acid. Really nasty stuff. These LiFePO4 batteries, they don't off-gas, they last for a long time. You get thousands of cycles out of them, and you get a lot more power. I could just flip a switch and knock off half the solar panels from charging anything or sending anything in.
Will you have the capability to have this do that automatically at some point?
My finances won't allow it right now, but I wanted to get rid of this and all of this and put a Sunold Power all-in-one unit. Is one big box on the wall here that will handle all of that power without having to have any switches on it. And it'll do everything automatically inside without me having to worry about it. This charge controller is limited to 90 amps input. So this one is showing that it was at 81.9 amps coming in on a solid push. That was way too much power. Right now there's a cloud out there because I'm only taking in 700 watts. We dropped down from the 1200 watts that we were bringing in when we first walked in. This cloud's going to move and it's going to come back up again. So if it does, I'll have to go turn some things on. Now this right here, the kWh, that's the kilowatt hours that my solar panels have produced. So I got 2.5. That means I've got 2,500 watts of stored power in my batteries already that's not being used. That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power.
By the time the end of the day is over, that will have 5-point-something kilowatts stored before I go to bed. So if you don't think I can't run an air conditioner overnight, you've got another thing coming.
You have quite possibly the best problem I've ever heard from an off-gridder. Too much energy, too much power.
That's a good thing to have, right?
It is. Lucky you.
Yeah. It sure beats all the lead acid batteries I used to have. Switching from 24 lead acid batteries down to 5 LiFePO4 batteries made all the difference in the world. I have 4 times the power and 4 times the duration with these 5 batteries over 24 other batteries.
And it looks like you have a lot less mess because it looks like down here
no lead acid anymore.
was spillage. This was all lead acid spillage.
Spillage and splatter on the walls is from gassing. That's when these things charge too much power coming in. Lead acid battery starts boiling and it puts off steam, which is a gas with hydrochloric acid in it, and it gets on the walls and it leaves black marks and eats wood and all of that stuff. No more of that. Buying $1.39 a gallon for distilled water. No more special tools required like battery fillers. This is so you can put distilled water into a battery just by pushing on it, and it shuts off when the cell is filled. But I don't need any of this anymore. It's all gone. All I have to do is enjoy the free electricity.
So what is this we're looking at here?
This is what I call my Tote Koozie. I took an IBC tote, cut the top off of it, and then I piped it up with air jets and a circulation pump with a filter, and I filled this up with water in the summertime so that I could cool off in there. I just go down my homemade ABS PVC ladder here and soak in the water up to my neck. Then I come out and I can sit up there on the chair and air dry if I want to. And I have a solar panel up there that runs everything. That's a 100-watt solar panel. And if we move around the other side, I'll show you where all the electronics are.
All right, let's go have a look at that.
So this needs to be repaired because the dogs have been getting around here. This is the air blower, which plugs in to the solar equipment right here. As it shows, I've got 13 volts in my battery. It's ready to power everything if I wanted to. But right now, I've got rainwater in here, which I'm not going to soak in until I use up this rainwater on my trees and clean this Tote Koozie out and refill it with fresh water. It's just going to be sitting here.
So this thing, does it have jets like a jacuzzi?
Yes. This line right here is connected to an air blower right here, and it blows air down through the half-inch pipe, and it has 4 jets, 2 on each side, that makes the water bubble when you're sitting in it. And if it's too hot of the summer in the 100-degree temperature, the water gets really hot, and the water will get up to 90, 95 degrees, and it's just too hot. So I can turn the air jets on, and the bubbling cools the water off by dissipating heat out through the air.
Great idea, because it does get very hot here in the summer.
It does. So I love sitting out here and cooling off on the really super hot days, and then I can sit up there in my chair and have a cold beer and go back in again if I feel like it.
And you could sit out here at night and watch the stars, and
I can do that also. One thing is, in the summertime, there are a lot of insects in the desert, like moths and stuff like that fly around. And sitting out here, they just bother you. Until I get a screened in area, I'm not going to sit outside very often unless I got a fire going in my fire pit.
Right over there.
This is my fire pit, and I got a rack on top of it to help hold down any ashes or embers that want to fly out of it. But I never light a fire in the wind, even a light wind I don't, because deserts out here, a lot of people don't realize how fast these places can burn. Now, this is only for nice calm nights on a cooler day in the spring or fall. This is a wash machine tub. This is a newer model wash machine tub. They're larger, and they have fins that attach on the inside, so there's no center post inside of there. So it makes fitting boxes in there easier.
Right, and it's a great way to repurpose an old washing machine tub.
Exactly, and it lets air in through the holes and lets heat out through the holes, so it becomes a nice fire pit.
This looks like a familiar place that you frequent quite often.
It's a place where the moon meets the moon.
Is this your main outhouse?
This is the main outhouse. And this has been here now for 8 of the 10 years on the same opening, the same hole, which I dug was 3 feet deep, 3 foot wide, and 3 feet across. So it was 1 cubic yard. And I add stuff to it all the time that keeps eating up the stuff that's inside of it so that it doesn't fill up on me. And it's still only about half full.
Okay, so when it's really cold though, you use the other ones, the indoor ones, but normally you would use this one.
Right.
The gate right behind the dog, well, you might think that is for the dogs to keep them out, but Bear has another story. So why do you put those gates up, Bear?
That's because we're starting the snake season, and we have two different types of poisonous snakes out here. One is the Western Diamondback, and the other one is the Mojave Green. The Western Diamondback, they do have an anti-venom treatment for that. Mojave Green is highly toxic and poisonous. You don't want to get bit by one of those. So those things keep the snake from being able to sneak into my shop and hide under a workbench while I have the doors open to let air in and out. And I can see this one needs to be reset in place. So what I do is I built these so that they wedge in when you do that.
And this is your workshop back in here.
This is my workshop. I do a lot of the small electronics things and some welding and grinding. And on the bench right there, I'm working on a rock crusher for crushing ore to powder it down so I could pan it out.
Yeah, because there could be gold in there, right? And you're looking for gold, or what are you looking for?
I'm always looking for gold. I'm looking for gold in all the right places.
What we're looking at right now is the garage. Tell me about this.
This is the garage, okay. So I have the lift-up garage type door here. I guess when I get older, it's going to be hard to lift up, but I could always put a garage door opener in it if I had to. I set this in between two shipping containers, and when I set it in between two shipping containers, the big mistake I made was not making it a little bit wider, because originally I wanted to be able to back my van in here to get it out of sight. And the problem with it now is I can get it in there with everything cleaned out, but I can't open the doors. It's too tight. So my van stays outside, and all my tools are in here, scattered all over the place, and the dogs like chewing on that car seat, which has to go to the dump on the next run.
So what exactly is this? And you made this yourself, is that correct?
Yes, I did. This is an old tank that a neighbor found in the desert and asked me if I wanted it, and I said yeah. So I modified it, I cut it up and welded on some legs and that kind of stuff. And this is my waste oil burner. In the winter when it gets cold out here and I want to work in the shop, I light this waste oil burner, and this warms up this shop in no time at all. The way this works is that old propane tank that says waste oil on it right there holds any type of waste oil. I can put motor oil, I can put synthetic oil, I can put vegetable oil, peanut oil, anything that will burn can go inside of there and mix together. It comes down through the valve and it comes here, and then I have this open gap area where I can turn this on and see the amount of drip that I have going, so I can control how much oil I'm putting into the flame. I'm not going to turn that on right now and waste oil. I had forgot to shut off the main valve, and apparently I got a little drip on the oil on the ground right there that I'll have to clean up, but I did shut it off yesterday when I came in. Here is the burn chamber. What happens is the oil comes down and goes into that drip pan that's in there, which is nothing more than an old stainless steel fry pan. And I throw a rag in there with a little bit of gasoline on it to get the flame going, and once it gets hot, the updraft going out of the stack will suck oxygen in through holes I have drilled in the bottom of the tank, and that provides the oxygen to the burning oil. And then this thing heats up to 980, 990 degrees Fahrenheit in 20 minutes. So you don't want to get too close to this. That's why it's in the center of the room. The heat that this thing puts off warms this whole shop with the door open in the winter.
And you're using a fuel that ordinarily most people would just throw away, right?
Well, yeah, and you don't want to be throwing motor oil away in the desert.
No, you definitely don't.
No, you definitely don't. So same thing with vegetable oil. There's no place to get rid of it, so I burn it, and I turn it into usable heat. Now this little tank on the side right here with the metal on it is a sand battery. It's an old oxygen tank that I took the top off of and I filled with sand. So it's just got regular sand inside of there, and it touches up against the side of the burner here at the main burn area So when this gets hot, that sand battery heats up all the sand that's inside of there. So after I shut down the fuel on the main burner, that sand battery will maintain heat in this room for another couple of hours afterwards, just by slowly dissipating the heat off of the sand that's inside of it. And in that corner is, of course, my water pump that gives me my water pressure from my water storage that's in a tank up the hill a little ways.
Now this looks like some kind of gold panning apparatus of some sort of little sluice.
Yeah,
or what do you
this
got?
is my homemade high banker, is what it's called. This is a regular sluice box that I had bought over here that you would normally hook up to a pump and just have water pumping in to this valve over here, which you put your stuff that you dug in that section and it would wash down through the sluice box. In order to speed things up, instead of having to classify everything by hand with a small classifier, I just shovel everything in here, rocks, dirt, sticks, whatever, and I have the water pumping in here with these holes drilled in the pipes that spray water onto it and wash everything down through the 1/4-inch classifier bed right here. Okay, then that drops, all the smaller stuff drops down to the sluice box and sluices out, and all the big rocks and stuff just fall off the end. So it speeds up the process, and I can adjust the legs to the different heights and stuff I need. Now this one needs to be moved up because it's supposed to hold that in place, but I set this up so it's fairly level and then just pump the water. Now when I got the water going in here, it runs down here, runs down through here, and I put a 5-gallon pail or something down here where my pump is. So the pump is pumping the water from this thing up here, and it goes around and comes back down. It drops off all of the gold and stuff up here, but puts the water back in so I could keep recycling the water when I'm out in the middle of the desert. There's not a lot of water to be had, so I can keep redoing the whole thing with 5 gallons of water.
So this is how you get the gold.
That's the way you get the gold. As far as the silver and the bronze, I'm not interested.
So all of this is housed inside the shipping containers he has on the property.
This is my beer making stuff, and this is fermentation tanks, and this will tell you how many days and what level of alcohol you have in your beer. And this is for lager and this is for ale. This thing will illuminate as the days go on and as the fermentation process goes on. And then the drain is up off the base for a bit, so that when you're draining it out to fill your bottles, the sediment on the bottom stays in the bottom and you're only taking the clear liquid from above. And then I have others up here also that are older models that do the same thing. Some of these are for just mixing the worts together before they're added to the fermentation tanks. The stainless steel pots here are used for cooking the worts, and the plastic spoon is for stirring it. That's so that you don't put any odd flavors into your beers and that stuff. And then you have different things like air gaps like this that fit in the tops of the fermentation tank, and you put a little water in there so the gases can come out but air can't go back in, so it doesn't spoil your beer.
And you make wine as well, huh?
I make wine as well. Wine's a little simpler. I could tell you how to very quickly make wine out of store-bought Welch's grape juice. Okay, you take a bottle of Welch's grape juice, take the cap off, dump out about 1 or 2 ounces out of the top of it, drink it if you want, or whatever, and then add a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, regular pure cane sugar, into the bottle. And you take a tablespoon of regular bread yeast that you would usually use for baking bread and dump that in there. Put the cap on, shake it up well till it dissolves, and then crack the cap just slightly loose, just enough so that the gases as they build up can get out. And then set it in a dark cabinet somewhere down low, not too hot, not too cold, and let it sit there for a week to two weeks. When you're ready, you can pour it out through any coffee filter and you have grape wine. So this is my reloading station. This is where I reload my own ammo. And you can see I've got brass casings everywhere. I've got loads and loads of brass casings in all the different calibers that I shoot. And I have bullets for replacing the bullets in there. And I have powder for the powder that I would put in the casings. And then I have the casings here, and I have tumblers here to clean and polish the casings. As you can see, they look like brand new. They still have the old primer in there. I have tools that go into this press, and you would put the casing in like that and pull it up, and the pin would knock that primer out of there, so you're ready to put a new one in. And then you have powder scales here to weigh out your precise amount of powder. You have tools like these little wire brushes for cleaning out that pocket, where the pocket primer goes. And then you have this type for cleaning out the pockets. That's for the small primer, and that's for the large primer. This is a powder trickle. So when you're measuring out your powder and you want to get precise measurements between ammunition, so that you're going to be doing some competition shooting, and you want to weigh out each drop that you're going to put in each case to be exactly the same. So you would put some powder in here and turn the little trickle knob on here, and it puts out one little flake at a time until you meet the right weight. So you can get super precise on that. Then you have your reloading books here that tell you the size bullets that you're going to be using, how much powder you're going to use, what brand of powder you're going to use, which primer to use, all of that stuff. Very simple to learn. I can sit somebody down in 1 hour's time and have them become a professional reloader. This is the chicken coop, and they're in there right now. I have 5 hens and a rooster, and the rooster was actually born here a couple of years ago from one of the hens that was a brooder. She's long gone, she's passed away. The rooster here is called Chicken Little. When he was young, he ran around like the sky was falling.
Let's go have a look. Say hi to them.
There's Chicken Little right there.
That's Chicken Little right there.
That's him.
And you got another one right there, and a few more down here.
Yep.
And then these are pretty good egg layers, I take it?
Well, some of these are down here are too young. They'll start laying soon. And matter of fact, I'm expecting eggs from them any time now. She lays eggs daily. I think the one with the black feathers down there has started laying, because now I get sometimes 2 eggs a day instead of just 1.
Telling me about diatomaceous earth and clean eggs and that kind of thing?
I mix diatomaceous earth, and some people will tell you you've got to use food grade diatomaceous earth. That's bullshit. Excuse my French. You can use swimming pool diatomaceous earth. You don't need a lot of it. A couple of tablespoons in a big bucket of food, and you just mix it in. And when they eat that, it helps them keep from getting worms, and all the eggs they lay come out clean. It prevents them from getting poop all over the eggs. Unfortunately, there's no eggs to gather here because I picked those out earlier.
How many eggs would you say you get in a typical week?
I've been getting 1 to 2 eggs a day, so figure anywhere from 12 to 14. This is a mulberry tree, and this is a male tree. The shape of the leaf looks like a male organ, and the female mulberry tree actually has just the oval-shaped leaf.
What do you do about water out here in the desert?
This is my main water tank, and I get water delivered out here by truck. I can't give you prices, it won't help you, because it depends on where you're at, which water company you're going to use, who's going to do the delivery, how far they have to go. But this is just for human use water, and this is all clean water. I added the barrels around the outside to increase my 2,500 gallon tank to be a 3,800 gallon tank. The blue barrels are basically backup. So when the black tank is empty, then I flip a valve right there and I can use the water out of the blue barrels. Now down inside of this door right here, this is what I call my little pump house basically. Oops. And this is where I filter everything before it goes down to the cabin. And you're supposed to have flexible connections coming off your main tank, so if there's any movement, it doesn't just break the valve off and then you have water just spilling on the ground. The flexible connections handle that. But you can see the T-valve is shut off there, the filter is shut off there, and the T-valve out there is shut off. So nothing from the blue barrels is coming out. It's all coming out of the main tank right now. And then that runs underground down to my cabin. And again, that's for human consumption only, for washing, cooking, brushing my teeth, that kind of stuff. Now for other water, for watering plants and things like that, and washing the van, I use rainwater. And I capture rainwater as much as I can from any flat surface out here whenever the rains are available. That's not too often lately. We're supposed to get 7.8 inches of total rain per year. But I think in the past 9 years, the most I've seen out here, one year was 6 1/4 inches or something like that. Never really gets that much water. Now you see on each corner I have barrels here, and then I have these pipes coming off of the gutters, and there's strainers or screens in those so that other stuff can't come down inside. I capture water there, and then I pump that down to my garden house down there, which we'll go to later on, and I use that for all my plants. Now this setup here with 4 totes is designed to catch the water off of the roof of the containers and the garage. And the way you determine how much water you're going to catch is in a 1-inch rain, you multiply the total square footage of roof area or flat catch area by 0.6. That'll tell you how many gallons of water you can collect in 1 hour's time. These containers are, if I'm not mistaken, are 40 footers by 30 feet across. So that's 30 times 40, 1,200 square feet times 0.6. Now to tell you how many gallons I can catch in a 1-inch rain coming down out of the sky.
Also, I noticed you have a shower right here. Tell me about that real briefly.
This was when I first got out here. This is where I actually took my showers in the summertime. This is my mesh shower, and an old shower door from an old job I tore out a bathroom on, and a pull chain for getting water to come out of the 2 barrels which store the water. And if you notice on the bottom of the black barrel, there is a heating element in that one. I had originally bought that heating element and put it in there to work off of my solar to heat my hot water from my shower. But as I got to living in the desert, I learned I don't need hot water in the desert.
Yeah, it's plenty hot out here already.
It's hot out of here most of the time. So just the sun beating on that black barrel made that water so hot, I have to shut that barrel off in the summertime and just use that one. I could shower out here in the wintertime, and that barrel gets plenty hot to have a hot shower out here. But then you have to remember, you come out of a hot shower from inside of here, and you have to walk across here to go inside the cabin. And if it's 30 degrees out here and you just had a hot shower with water temperature in 95 degrees, when you get inside that door, you're already shivering. Okay, so since these are smaller areas, these barrels don't have a first flush system on them. A first flush is whatever dirt and stuff is on the roof. That first part is usually redirected away from the vessel that's going to hold the water, so that your water is cleaner inside. Now, because these are such small quantities, I don't bother with first flush. But if we move this way, I'll show you on the shipping containers where I've got the first flush system set up over here. As you can see, it comes off the gutter and it runs straight down. Inside of that is a plastic water bottle that just fits inside of that tube. So as the water first comes down in the rain, it runs straight down. And as it gets down in the bottom of that tube, it lifts that bottle up floating, the plastic bottle. That gets up and it gets to the T, and it can't go through the T because the T is a smaller diameter than the pipe. So the bottle sticks there with the neck sticking upward, and now the water is diverted out that side tube and into the totes. So now all the water, all the dirty water is in that tube, and all the cleaner water is filling these totes. Those 2 totes up there have a siphon hose on it that comes into this tank. So I open that siphon hose up. When those tanks are full, they will start siphoning down to this one. So these will automatically fill up when those are full, or actually start filling up when those reach the filling point higher than these totes. These bottom ones will fill up first. Once I get these filled, I just step outside, turn one valve, it shuts off the siphon, and then those others can fill up. So all of these totes are full. And this is all rainwater I captured in the rain this year. And I've pumped it down from the totes that we were just at and filled these totes up. And now the manifold is connected to each one, but I only open up one valve at a time. So if anything springs a leak, I don't lose anything more than 1 tote of water. The tote behind you is also full of water and ready to go. And that's all rainwater, but with acid rain and chemicals being sprayed in the air all the time, I wouldn't recommend drinking rainwater unless you really filter it out with some good filtration system. You don't want to use just a filter like I have up at the big tank. That only keeps debris from coming through. You want to have a good charcoal filter that takes out chemicals and all that stuff that you're going to find in rainwater.
So how did you end up with all these dogs, Bear?
They were all abandoned in the desert and left to die, and they ended up here to get a drink of water, and then they stayed.
So you basically saved all these dogs' lives.
Basically, and I'm not the only one. A lot of the neighbors out here have done the same thing. There are some people out there, especially the illegal growers in this desert, that bring dogs out for protection, and then when they're all done growing their illegal marijuana, they leave and leave the dogs behind to fend for themselves.
So they just totally dump them, and that's it. And then they either find people like you or they just die.
And people like this little pit bull here. This is cloudy day. Somebody dumped a bunch of trash and furniture across the street from my property. And I saw the pile and went over to check it, and they had dumped her with it. And at first she wouldn't come anywhere near me, so I used the furniture that they dumped to make her a little shelter to get in because it was a rainy season. And the next day she was here because this is the head of the pack, Doggy Daddy, had brought her back home.
Did you make a little doggy condo of sorts for these guys, or?
Yes, that's this right here. And except for the tarp, this is all scrap lumber. The 4x4s are some of the 4x4s I got from those pallets, but all the siding on this is actually flooring boards that I found in the desert. Somebody had torn a bunch of flooring up and threw all this flooring in there. Then I made this little window for a window access, so when it gets hot in there in the summertime, I can leave the window open and let the air. I also added an extra tote in there I turned into a doghouse.
Right back there.
Yep, and that's for the leader of the pack. He gets to go inside the main bedroom in there, and the others all sleep around on the carpeting.
Wow, that's cool. It's nice that you've got a good heart to take care of these animals.
Well, somebody had to, because without it, they'd all die of starvation and thirst out here in the desert.
So Bear, you had a lot of materials from your previous line of work, and you got a lot of the materials here in this house for free. What do you think the total cost was to build this house?
Given a rough estimate, I'd say somewhere between, I spent about $5,000 to $7,000 on actually having to buy materials. Everything else was either stuff I had left over from my company or stuff that I've gotten from people for free.
Okay, and you got those windows for free, right?
Those windows were actually a set of sliding glass doors that I took out of a customer's house, and the frames were all rusted. And they said to throw them away, so I brought them out here, pulled the metal frames off, made wooden frames, and turned them into giant picture windows.
You're gonna have a couple of burgers here. Is it true that you went to culinary school?
Yes, sir. I went to Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island. At the time, it was the #1 culinary arts school in the country.
All right, well that's good to know. We're gonna have some really good burgers then, huh?
I'm also a burger expert. So these are going to take a few minutes to cook. I'm going to go back inside and I'll come out and flip those in a couple of minutes. But this white thing on the wall, if you're wondering what that is, that's my fold-up table. Well, I just unfold it when I need to and put a chair on each side, sit out here and have sandwiches.
That sounds cool.
Then I can fold it back up again and lock it into place.
Look at that nice patty melt that Bear cooked up, and we're having a cerveza and some chips. Yum yum. Let's try it out. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Bear.
You're welcome.
If you've seen anything here of solar or batteries that you're interested in, make sure you go to Bear's channel, click on the links. He can save you some money through his discount codes. Right, Bear? Alright, I hope you enjoyed learning a little about off-grid living in the Mojave Desert with Bear. Don't forget to give me a like on the video, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is the Rock Hopper. I'll see ya.